everyone. Welcome to Next Level Humanity podcast, Masters Unplugged. I have a dear friend and guest here, Jules. Welcome.
Hi, Nirsha.
How have you been?
Really good, thank you. So happy
Great.
to be here.
She's the founder of Village, and we are going to talk about building belonging at scale, product intuition, community. It's a community platform, also the craft of consumer startups, which I'm very much interested and very much inspired in. My first question to you, Jules, will be what personal insight or lived experience led you to build Village? I know the story a bit, but I want to hear it again.
Yeah, well, there are a couple of things that came together. But first of all, I have a background in psychology, in systems thinking, and also in creative industries. And something that kept me bothering for years is that we focus too much on the external crises. What's seen in the world out there that's visible to the eye. But there's also an underlying that's not so visible relational crisis happening in the world. Isn't it weird that we are living in the most connected age ever, and at the same time there's a loneliness epidemic?
Yeah.
So that was one of the things that was bothering me. And also in my personal life, having lived a life of very privileged life, being in different countries, you start to get a bit of a distance from the people that you truly care about. And it is actually not your personal fault. It's just that the life gets in the way. You just prioritize other things.
Yeah, I see it. I see it kind of like the drawback of being a global individual.
Exactly. So being a global individual comes with a tax on your relationships.
Yeah.
And when you look at it, we have so many tools that help us on the productivity side, that helps you be a more productive individual at work. But on your personal life, you're just left alone. You need to figure things out by yourself. You need to follow up, follow through. Yeah. You need to check in. And that was a little bit frustrating for me.
Yeah, and we when we first talked about it, I have been really able to connect with, like, if you're a global individual, you have friends, and I have friends in LA, San Francisco, San Diego, Miami, Istanbul, Izmir, London, and Brussels and Paris, and multiple, Dubai, friends living in Abu Dhabi, and I've been traveling and living in multiple cities, especially for the past 25 plus years. And it is really hard to keep track of these people. Like, keep track of, if you have so many friends in so many different cities, if you have left your, the city you have been born in, then it becomes tough. Yeah. So I believe Village is trying to solve that problem. And how does Village solve that problem?
Well, it is about context. You're talking about it's difficult to keep track of those people, and it means that you don't have the context into their lives. You don't know where they are, how they're doing, what's bothering them, what are highs and lows. So we're starting by getting that context of people. And it's interesting because we do it in a very unintuitive way. We're doing it with AI. AI becomes a facilitator of these relationships. What Village started as is a tool that AI asks people about their lives. How's your day going, Nefsha? What's been a highlight of this week? Tell me about what's been bothering you lately. Where have you been? What have you tried? What have you been watching? What have you been reading? It's actually something that I noticed in my own life, where when someone asks you, when you meet with a friend and they ask you about these things, you start to share these. But without asking, most of us don't really share. So that's the role AI starts to play, that we are designing Village around initially. So as you start to have that context, it gives you a picture of that user's life, right? Your friend's life or your family member's life.
So you're literally bringing everyday coffee conversations, everyday friendship conversations. For example, when you meet with a friend at a coffee shop, the conversation you make into a platform.
Yeah. And this is how it's possible, because there's AI, and it can understand what your context, so it can ask you relevant questions. It can start to build your profile. So it starts to ask you follow-up questions on what you shared before, and maybe some questions that can take you to the future. And this is only the beginning. There's also a myriad of opportunities that we can do when we integrate with other socials or other.
When you say that, like, when I start thinking deeper, I realize that, like, I haven't even asked my dad these questions, like what he watched the past couple of weeks, months, maybe. I don't know what he's watching, what he's reading. So it's kind of like, maybe, would you agree that that is the root cause of people feeling lonely, because they don't have time to ask those questions? Because it's kind of like that conversation connecting with what they're doing, how they're spending their life. Like I said, I don't even know my mom or dad is doing, or what he's reading or what he's watching, and if I knew, and it's kind of like it's beyond what social platforms are offering, because on social platforms it's just shallow, and this is more deep knowledge and deep connection with humans.
I
If
think you're
we get
touching
that, maybe that loneliness would fade away. What do you think?
I think you're touching on something very important there, which is human relationships. They happen at different levels. When you look at modern life, it has put us at a distance, and it also took time away from us because we're busy with other things. And we used to live in much smaller communities. That's why the app is called Village. We used to live in villages, and it was just a natural part of your day to just see how other people are or what they're doing. It doesn't have to be very deep. It's just like sparking a conversation, sparking a dialogue about what someone's working on, what they're thinking about these days. So that's what we're trying to bring to Village, exactly starting from more lightweight about them. And if they are into it, if they're engaged enough with the product, then it takes them to a little bit deeper.
Yeah.
But that's where AI also becomes very helpful, because it can personalize the experience for everyone and ask questions that to the extent that they reply.
Yeah, and the community could maybe reach out, because it's not sometimes easy for people to reach out, but if they shared some personal experiences, maybe their community would reach out, and it's kind of like also on a deeper level. I think, because I gave it a thought and a deeper thought after we spoke a couple of times, it's kind of like creating this safe space, safe environment for people to have healthier psychologies as well. So I think Village has a deeper meaning.
I'm smiling because the initial prototype that I tested with my friends, I called it Safe Circle. I realized it implies something that's very deep and heavy. So I took it to a bit of a lighter place. That was also the feedback that came from users. But 100% context is just one side of the equation, knowing what other person is doing or how they are. And then we're also thinking about how can we build the meaningful bridges between people. If one person is going through a life situation, how can other people in their village can support them, and what's the right way people without being very...
So it's kind of like taking them from what you're doing to to a point where, how are you feeling?
Yeah,
Or
well,
what are you
without making
experiencing?
it very
Yeah,
obvious,
of
so that
course.
they come
Yeah,
along
of
with us
course.
in
Yeah,
the journey.
yeah. And at one point, did the idea shift from conception to conviction? And when you knew this needed to exist, and you went on and created it?
Well, for me, it's very easy to just start thinking about something and feel like this is needed, and then I just roll up my sleeves and all.
Okay.
When it became a conviction was also the moment when I was testing it with a very scrappy prototype at home, the one I mentioned called Safe Circle. And then I realized that when you get that context about your friends that you don't get on WhatsApp or on Instagram or anywhere else, because no one gets prompted to answer these questions, it is actually really good to have that knowledge, have that information.
Yes.
I felt really good, and I wanted to scale that. And it was an interesting time because we were just at the beginning of the AI revolution. This was about a year ago, let's say, right? There was this opportunity of how AI is going to change consumer habits in every different vertical that you can imagine. So I thought this was an interesting opportunity to use AI to bring that context that will make people feel better and connected.
Yeah, brilliant. So the thing is, of course, when we speak about social platforms, I think the first thing that comes up to people's mind, especially investors like me, is, it is notoriously difficult to scale. And what gave you the confidence you could compete in this space?
Well, one thing is that I don't think we are competing with them. We're not trying to become the next WhatsApp. We're not trying to become the next Snapchat. We're trying to create something that fills the gap, and it can work in parallel with everything else that's already existing and people are using. So I also believe, and this is a big bet, like every founder is making a bet when they're starting their village, is that these giants will not be looking into the space. Their business model is they will use AI in very different ways. We are already seeing examples of that. They double down into content creation just to keep the eyeballs on the platform. That's their business model. But I still believe that this is a very niche area for them, looking into how to get people more connected. So that was one thing that made me feel like, okay, we can exist in this space because there's a gap. And then another thing is that I never, thought that I would be working on a new social network. This is not my life plan. But I wanted to solve this problem, and the nature of it was social. So I looked into the mechanics of successful social products, successful consumer products as well. It doesn't have to be social necessarily. And I think it comes down to having that repeatable process, the playbook of fast experimentation and velocity. It's about what's the right ingredient. And then I realized I need the team, I need the resources, I need advisors. So this whole past 1 year has been spent on building those foundations.
And with those foundations built, what have you been testing? And how are the tests going about, community, digital connection, what consumers want?
Yeah. So I'm a millennial. And obviously, I started by millennials because I know them much better, generations. And I just wanted to solve my own problem. That's, I think, most consumer founders say the same thing. And when it first started, it was asking a little bit deeper questions because I like having one-on-one, deep conversations. Then I realized it's tough. It's tough for people to answer these questions. Not everybody wants to answer deeper questions on a random day on a Tuesday. So that was first insight that we got into. Okay, maybe the questions need to be a little bit lighter. And then the audience. Is millennials, are they the right group to start some? When you look at all successful social networks, they've all started from younger audiences. Yes. This is not to say something evil about get them younger and then make them addicted to life. But it's also about how it's just lighter for them. It's just much easier for them to try something new, send it to a friend, play with it, and then start building habit around it. They have time, they have curiosity, they have energy. Sadly,
and they're building relationships.
Exactly.
They're not taking care of their babies.
Exactly. They have time and they haven't given up on life yet.
Or on meeting new friends, meeting new people. They don't have enough experience to
or
say
finding
this
new ways
is enough.
to engage their existing friends and family, especially when you look at 20, 24 years old. They are just at those messy years of graduation, finding a job, trying to balance a couple of things. Maybe you need to move to a new city or a new country. So those are the years where they are feeling a little bit oh, this is getting real, and I don't know how to handle everything. And that's where Village is kind of coming to their place in a bit of a playful and helpful companion that they can stay in touch with their friends.
In general, early stage consumer startups usually live or die by engagement. What were your earliest product decisions that truly moved the needle?
Yeah, like I said, the transition from depth to lightness was a big that really moved the needle. It increased our activation by at least 2 times. Even for millennials, we see people keep coming back to the app for the daily questions now. They're light, playful things, sometimes about the Olympics, sometimes about what they're reading, what's a big win for you this week, more playful. So that's been a big game changer. And then I think another thing is looking into how to use AI in a way that is like a companion, more so than like a therapist, keeping it more light, playful. And this comes back to a little bit prompt engineering, how we want the AI to show up to facilitate that dialogue, what kind of questions, what's the tone of voice it's using. So that's also been something that moved the needle in terms of engagement a lot.
Yeah. And what signals tell you that your product is becoming a habit rather than just a download for people?
Of course, for us, download actually means nothing. Anybody can download any app these days, but for us, it's keep coming back. Retention is very, very important too. We track number of updates or answers to questions people have shared on the app. So that is a big metric, because ultimately this will be successful once we have that context on people. So are we getting enough context in a way that will make people see other things about people in your life that you didn't know before? That is very, very important. So we track that number of updates and how it grows over time per week. That's critical. The classic metrics around retention is very important. And also the time it takes to going from a solo user to 3 friends and more. because we've seen that the breaking point is having 3 friends in the app. That's
okay.
the
And
that's
they
why
have to do it themselves. They have to bring on friends themselves, right?
well, we're looking at ways to get them as groups, groups of 2, 3. That's why we have this go-to-market strategy around colleges, residences, getting ambassadors so that people can get onboarded to it as a group rather than just solo user. But that's a big, big differentiator when you're using it as a solo, even though there's a solo use case, which is very critical for social apps. Once you hit 3 friends, retention is just over the roof.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So the question is, how do you bring those friends, and how do you bring 3 people together or 5 people together? With
exactly.
groups?
So that's the key question.
That might be a very interesting sales and marketing strategy, though. Like it's instead of, you downloading an app or you onboarding to a platform, onboarding to a platform as a group and promoting that's a very different strategy.
Yeah. So going back to what gave us the confidence that we can compete, you need to have a testable, repeatable playbook of experimentation. So we're building on that playbook. What have we tested? What's successful? What can we need to toss? That goes to also our go-to-market strategy. There is no right or wrong way of doing things. There's just really understanding what people...
Testing
exactly.
conscious. And how do you prioritize features when building your platform, when users expect constant evolution as well?
So people have very different ways to connect with friends and family. This is, I think, like one of the secret, things that I really like about it is that I get to find out a lot about how people connect, what platforms they use, how often they call their mom. I know so much about people now, but I won't. So it is quite individual connections and relationships. So we try to understand what's the underlying denominator, the common things beneath all of them. And so we think about what other platforms also don't do. Can be unique to Village because it's a very difficult space to compete.
Where's the gap?
Yeah. Where is the blue ocean space? Because it's very difficult to compete. That brings us more and more to the how can we get better context that you cannot find anywhere else, building features around those. And there are also a couple of things that people tell you that, oh, I want this and I want that, but behavior is very different. That's very, very important when you're building in consumer. People will tell you, like, give you a list of 1,000 things that they think they want, and then you build them and they won't use it. So we're actually quite sensitive about what to build. We do it like on weekly cycles, weekly sprints. We see what's sticking and what's really not working, and then we immediately toss. But it all should come back to, is this going to help people feel more connected? That is the North Star metric. We're not going to build anything just to keep people on the platform, just to, monetize, but it all needs to be connected to that North Star metric, because otherwise it's a really crowded market and there's no room for Village to exist.
Yeah. And what's your philosophy and strategy for fundraising?
So fundraising in this space is not very, not something that comes, very like easily because it's not B2B.
Yeah.
Right? To begin with, it's B2C. It even took me like 1 year to find my technical co-founder because everybody is into B2B SaaS agents and all that. And I get it. Like it's a very, very, very interesting space. Same with fundraising. You need to find people who are interested in consumer space.
Yes.
Who are seeing the potential of this emerging consumer markets with AI coming into picture. So there are a couple of filters. The consumer filter is one of them. And then another one is people who understand the problem. It's very difficult for me to start talking about Village if someone is not really interested in this space and they're more interested in climate solutions, for example. It is just not a easy conversation to have because you can find many angles that says, oh, there's WhatsApp for that, oh, there's Instagram for that. But when you really understand the problem, that they're not really helping you to communicate at a human level, then it really clicks.
Yeah, maybe already, investors who have already invested in different social platforms and who truly know the gap, because when you have some experience,
I think that's a bit tricky, because I think building social apps is a place where I've noticed that is all about like, how do we get them addicted? How do we get them like engaged more? How do we like peak do something crazy and then like disappear forever. That's the ethos behind building social apps. That's why I position ourselves as more of a relational intelligence tool. It's not really a, like social primarily first, like just message on it all the time kind of a platform. And this is also the second thing about our fundraising philosophy is I'm mindful of the investors that come in the early stage so that they understand the problem. And it takes tweaking to get to a product and the product market fit. So we're at that early stage. I'm not after raising millions from get-go.
Yeah, I even think you're pre-seed now, right?
Yeah,
it's a pre-seed.
We are pre-seed, and we need to raise higher figures once we crack really what the product is, who the audience is, what's our go-to-market strategy, what's the customer acquisition cost. There are still a lot of things that we are testing on a weekly basis. It needs to be a group of investors who are comfortable with that space, a very early, messy consumer space.
Yeah, and who can also help you, grow the company, grow the customer base. At what stage does a community-first product transition into a scalable business? What do you think? What are the stages you need to pass through?
So there needs to be a benefit for everyone, right? I think the word community is so overused. It's everywhere. Everybody's trying to build their community. I think what's the connective tissue for this community is very important. And the reason why we're very excited about Village is that connective tissue is very strong. These are people that you are already friends with, that you already call family, that you have that intention to stay in touch with them. So that is such a strong connective tissue. That is giving us signals that, like I said, when you hit 3 friends, the retention is really, really strong. And that is a very strong signal in terms of, just a product, a social product to a community and network product that can scale. And one thing that's also interesting about Village is that it's a bit of a blue ocean space, still difficult, I understand, but there's such an underlying human reality behind it. We want to be seen, heard, and understood. These current platforms that we're using, they're really good in some use cases across of entertainment and whatnot. But when you look at, what users say, and just a few days after using Village, they find out things about their friends that they didn't know, even from a 3-year-long Snapchat streak. So that like one layer deeper when it comes to getting to know each other and being there for each other is a underlying human need, and that's also what that gives us confidence that this is a problem and
it's a global pandemic, that's for sure. I think that there's a huge need and there's a gap, and because I'm also working with humans and I hear it more and more often, so that's why I find this very inspiring. What has been the most difficult decision you have made as a founder, and what did it teach you?
I think letting go of millennials. I'm like, okay, I don't think we're gonna make it as a generation. And we saw the signals. It was very strong that it's just Gen Z is picking it up faster and
maybe the older generation as well. I would suggest.
So that's the thing. When you ask me who needs it the most, I would say elderly.
Yeah.
But it is not
like I would say we need it the most. And I'm gonna tell you why. Like, I think the generation between 40 to 60, 65 need it the most, and I'm gonna tell you why.
No, I can see I have my own reasons why they need it the most myself. So I'd love to hear your reasons. But definitely they need it the most. But it doesn't mean that they are open for a new solution or they have mental space for a new app. It's very different.
I'm gonna now tell you why, because if you have done, and I believe you did, or you might, if you have done some research on, because of my human behavior expertise, when you look at the elder generation, which I'm referring to I would say before the internet generation. So before the internet generation, I am before the internet generation. And before the internet generation is a more slow thinking and slow communicating generation. Like I had when I was a teenager, in university years, in high school years, even when I first got married, we had hours and hours and hours for dinners and lunches and communications. Like I remember I would sit 2 hours, 3 hours, 5 hours with a friend just chatting, and we used to have that. So that's a fact. And that was before the internet, before things got fast, before knowledge was accessible and everything was accessible, and things got really fast, and businesses and everything got fast. Even like I would say before 2000, like the generation who were teenagers and newly married before 2000. So that's why I'm referring to the generation between maybe right now 45 years old to 65 years old generation, because we had that and we lost that.
Why did
I
you
think
lose it?
we have I think because things got fast and life got fast, and we have responsibilities and we have businesses and we have families. And I think the teenagers right now and the new generation, that they would of course love the platform as well, but whoever needs, like true needs, we need it. And when you do research and when you look at, for example, what our generation tend to share on Facebook, it is like tend to like, I did this and I did that. And it seems like because I have two daughters, one of them is 24 years old, the other one is 15 years old. They have Snapchat, they have this. It's just for them, it's nonsense, sharing, I did this, I did that, I'm reading this. It's just nonsense for them because they're the internet generation. But for us, like for me, it is really important, to know that's why I'm very interested in Village, to know what my dad is reading and because we used to talk about that for hours and we used to do that and we lost it. So I think there is a bigger need in the elders, and I think it's like there is and how I feel it is like for Village and platform like Village, because it is Village and the culture is Village, instead of big marketing strategies, I think mouth to mouth strategy is like when that happens, and that happens quicker with the elder generation, because the elder generations still speak and
so that is 100% true. So the elder generation, I don't think you're elder generation, but let's
elder than you, let me say.
They know what's missing because they had it before. What's interesting with Gen Z and younger generations is that they don't know that's
what they're missing
until you show them.
They will need education.
That's what Village is doing.
Yeah,
when
they need
use
education.
It and they're like, oh my God, I had no idea you were watching that. Like that's the
thing.
So all of these generations have very different needs because of the different, kind of cultural shifts they had to go through. But it's the underlying human need is there, even though Gen Z is not aware that they need it,
Yeah, they need some education and they need different strategies. I think the tipping point might be with a little bit elder generation, but that's my experience.
You also asked me what this decision taught me, like switching from millennials to Gen Z. I started this thinking that I know the problem really well. I'm a millennial. I know like what got into our way, what tools we use. I had a lot of confidence in knowing the problem and what might solve it, and then it didn't work. And then I had to trust the process and then lean into the generation that is actually using it, and then observe them, and also think about my team structure. Who can bring the right insights or the right ideas that's culturally attuned to Gen Z. That is not me. And I found like comfort and trusting something that I learned along the way.
And mine is a theory, but I don't think it's about the generations. I also think it's about the stages of life. I mean, the reason why millennials right now are not interested is probably because they're at a stage in their life where they are more focused on, building businesses, building some wealth, growing their kids, getting married, or getting remarried, having kids. So it's kind of like that stage in our lives where that happened to me, that happens to everyone. I think that's just the stage of life where you're only interested in your family, your community, your little thing, and you're just doing your thing. And then when you get to my age, you're like, you need it. And before that age where you are absorbed with life itself, and children and family and building business, that's the stage of life, and before that as well. So I think you're on the right track, targeting the generations before your generation right now. And it's not about millennials and Gen X or Gen Z, or I think it's about the stages of life. Because in life, for example, when we're children, we're interested in playing and maybe researching about what life is, asking questions. And then the next stage, you go to school. It's kind of like you build those relationships, then you build a bigger social group. That's the group to be targeted, because they're interested in building a bigger group and connecting. And then I think that's my theory, but at the stage I am in, when your children are grown and you have set up your business, you have built some wealth, and you have done some stuff, and then you have this huge need to connect. And that's why those people 50 plus tend to share, when you look at Facebook, photos of themselves. I'm reading this book, I went to this restaurant, and you're like, why is she telling us these? But that's the need, that's
I sometimes think of Village as a preventative mental health tool.
That's a great approach.
Because longevity, when you look at it,
I can only agree.
Right? It's
connection.
It's too late by the time you are 60 and you realize that you haven't, for many reasons. It could be about you, it could be about others, it could be about life happening, that you lost certain connections in your life and you're all of a sudden a part of the loneliness epidemic. It is just too late. It's kind of like smoking. You need to start building these habits early on. And then I think it is also unfair for like leaving people to just go figure it out yourselves. That's exactly what Village is trying to do. Become not operational, but I guess operational and infrastructural that helps them with maintenance of these relationships. There's so much happening when it comes to meeting new people. I don't know if you're aware of this. Every single city in the world, every little community is about meeting new people. Meet new people, meet new people. Here you can meet new people. Sure, I understand. And in a very like mobile world, we definitely need to meet new people where we go. But what happens after you are friends?
Yes, a self-reflection. I don't think people, because my community is 50 plus. I don't think people right now, 50 plus community, is interested in meeting new people at all. We're only interested in staying connected with what we already have. And that's what I meant by stage. After maybe 45, maybe after 50, it's kind of like, and I know this from my own community, you just stop being interested in meeting new people. It's a stage of life. And you're only interested in building your already existing because you already have existing connections, but that's why I use the word need for 50 plus. And it's not about the generation. For anyone 50 plus who have done family done, marriage done, some money done, wealth done, this done, that, and then you're like, the only thing you truly need is deepening those connections. And that there's a huge, and you're not interested in meeting new people. I think Village would serve 50 plus, and that's something to be tested. Something to be tested. And I also sincerely, we'll talk about that. I think sincerely that that generation, mouth to mouth, just grows, because again, that's why I'm talking about stages. Again, 50 plus, 55 plus, you again have more time. Because when someone is 50 and 50 plus, and they haven't found out, they are not authentically living, I think they would have serious health problems and die. Because after 50, it's like in women we talk about menopause, after menopause, men as well. Like you just become someone who is authentic and you just care about, what you truly care about, all the politics and the masks, and they're gone, because you don't basically give a shit. You're like, I am this, and I have my community. I want to happily live, the rest of my life. So I think the mouth to mouth and a platform like yours, because it's village and the whole concept, that's how I feel with all my, not feel, and also intuitively know that would like rocket grow.
The time it would take to invite friends, that's super important.
Yeah, like 50 plus halftime. 60 plus, 50 plus, 55 plus halftime.
Invite someone. New social out.
Yeah.
Like I mean, we haven't heavily tested with elderly, but like you need to roll up a red carpet to just get people to download a new app. But let's see. Yeah, okay. But I have some thesis over there, some theories over there. So what belief, with all the work you've done, because this is kind of like, you're a psychologist and you know what you're doing for sure, you're an expert on the field, and still startup is a new thing for you. You're a first-time startup founder. What belief about startups and social platforms have you personally outgrown in this journey? What beliefs have I outgrown? I think in the startup world, when you look from the outside as a first-time founder, it is like this narrative of, oh my God, you need to be in San Francisco, you need to be in YC, you need to have this like school trajectory, you need to have this co-founder.
As if only those founders make it and the rest are
like
not.
It's narrative in the like mass media, because they get more clicks, they just rise to the surface. You just need to dig a little bit deeper. My journey is very different than that, and I feel pretty good about how things are going, like even though I'm not in San Francisco. So I think that's just one thing. If anyone's listening, if they're a founder, just do your own thing and do whatever is working for you, and just follow your other signals.
Yeah. And this is the most exciting question for me, at least for me. I hope everybody listening or watching. How has building Village changed you as a leader and as a human being?
So I think I've started to appreciate smaller improvements, like incremental improvements, because it is a long journey. And I personally had adopted just 1% improvement philosophy every day. Now I'm applying that to Village, to the business. Nothing has to like just spike, like peak every single day. There will be peaks, but there is constant progress that bring you those peaks. So on average, let's say 1% improvement. Compounding effects is incredible. At a given day can look very quiet, You maybe 1% improved your narrative, or maybe you 1% improved how the app looks, or maybe you 1% got closer to your like perfect go-to-market and product market fit. It's very quiet. You don't notice that it's happening, but the compounding effects is everything. So you just have to keep going at it. And when it's quiet, I think that's one thing that I learned. Don't worry about it is okay.
Yeah.
It is a part of the process. And this is something that I've been talking about a couple of friends lately. I feel like life, and also building 10% like low, 10% very high, and then like 80% is just, you just show up, do the work, then go for the next day.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah. And what lesson about people, not technology, has surprised you most while building Village? Nothing, yeah, because that's your expertise.
I think,
probably.
Yeah,
might be nothing. Yeah,
nothing
that
major,
is your expertise.
Let's say.
Yeah,
I like to read about it. I observe people a lot. What got me into this is as those observations, knowing what is happening in different generations, where to start from, how people communicate these things in their lives. For example, the fact that people won't come to you and be like, I'm very lonely. No one will do that.
No.
And that's not a surprise.
Yeah. No, it's not.
No one will tell you that they need something like this. That's not a surprise. Yeah. But I know the deep down at a more human and deeper level, it is needed. And
that's your expertise. Yeah. You're a founder, market fit. And what are you currently refining in your product and business philosophy?
We're currently refining how we use AI a lot more, and what it means when we have this context on people. So it is quite a blue ocean space when you think about it, of how LLMs have a lot of information of us on us individually, but they don't know your social graph. Social apps have the social graph, LLMs have individual context. I don't know who's going to bring them together. So we're kind of borrowing from both of the worlds and building a business around it. And we're fine-tuning the role of AI there. How does it initiate conversation? How does it help people with the context that they have, what they should be doing today? And how to build a category defining business. I think that's something that we're refining every single day as we go, because I do believe that we're looking at a new category here.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. Time flew. It's been almost an hour now.
Really?
Can you imagine?
No.
Yes. Thank you. It was a very inspiring conversation.
Thanks
I
so
think
much.
we're just in the flow, and
Yeah.
we truly care
It's
about
unbelievable.
similar things. Yeah. There's one final question. What
Okay.
advice would you give to founders building community-driven consumer startups today?
Community-driven consumer startups. I would say go beyond like community at the surface. You know, you can bring people together, you can host events, people will come, but what's the connective tissue? Really look into that. What brings people together? What's the genuine insight that you have there?
Content and context.
Exactly, because you know, like I said earlier, just open Instagram today, you would see billion of different events happening that bring people together, but some of them stick around, some of them die, and the reason behind that is that some of them understand what brings people together.
Yeah, I fully can connect with that.
We don't
I
need to
fully
talk
agree.
anymore. We just
I fully agree with that because I have the experience. I've been doing organizing events for over 25 plus years. And when you understand what humans need and do events, my events are more educational, but it's still, why do people keep coming to my events for over 25 years? That is that. Thank you.
Thanks so much,
Jules.
This is amazing.
Thanks.
Can't believe it's been 1 hour.
And thanks to everyone who is listening to us from Spotify and watching us on YouTube. I enjoyed every minute of our conversation. I hope you did as well. And I will see you in the next episode. Bye for now.